Hey everyone! Today on the plastic canvas we're painting the Tinkerer from Gloomhaven by Cephalofair Games. Hey everyone, Matt here from the Plastic Canvas and welcome to the third episode in this Gloomhaven series, and today we're painting the Tinkerer. But again, I just want to say a massive thank you to Stella and Tarrant for sending me some of their Gloomhaven minis. They've sent me the Tinkerer, the Scoundrel and the Brute, so the Scoundrel and Brute are also up in this series. But if you haven't come across Stella and Tarrant and Meeple University yet, they do awesome board game related content. They do reviews, how to plays for the Dice Tower. You'll find them on Board Game Breakfast. They make really fun content, so make sure you do go check them out. And like I've been saying, I was watching their stuff before they sent me these minis, so this is an unbiased recommendation, but I can definitely recommend checking out Meeple University. Alright, so let's get to talking about the Tinkerer. Now, one thing that I have mentioned a few times in my videos is the way in which I always try and look for different elements or parts of a mini to pick out in some contrasting colours if a mini is predominantly one colour or if there are large slabs of a single colour. So here's the artwork for the Tinkerer. And you can see that he's wearing some sort of a suit underneath, I guess, and then over the top of that are different plates of armour. They're a bit more decorative, I think, than what would actually work as armour, but they're there anyway. Now, there's a couple of different materials. There's a few different metallics for the armour. His head is a lighter colour than the rest, but pretty much he is from head to toe one single colour, just that brownish, bronzish sort of colour. And that's fine in artwork, in 2D artwork. I don't mind the artwork for the Tinkerer. I think there's better artwork in the game, but I still don't mind it for this guy. But I've always found that artwork in a 2D sense, like character artwork, doesn't always necessarily just automatically translate onto a mini, which is a 3D object, especially when you're coming down to the scale of like the Tinkerer is here, who is very small. And if I stuck strictly to the artwork for the Tinkerer and brought every colour over exactly the same, when bringing it down to a mini that's this small, it'd be really hard to tell those colours apart because they are quite subtle shifts. Again, like I've said, especially when working on this scale. And so what I've tried to really do here and stay really conscious of is looking for spots where I can break those colours up and veer away from the artwork a bit so that I can put in some contrasting colours that are going to make certain parts stand out and break up that brownish, bronzish colour that really is from head to toe. So I tried to work with the same sort of colour palette, so using similar colours where I could, so that, first of all, this guy was clearly matching his character card, but also so that I was able to take the vibe or the theme or the feel, I suppose, of the character, because he does have quite a distinctive look about him, so I still wanted to carry that through into the miniature. But then, yeah, like I said, where I could, veer away from the artwork and pick out some different colours just to try and break it up a little bit and make it a little bit easier to pick out some of the details, because if you do use the same colour, you know, in large slabs or have that as the predominant colour for the mini, it does have a couple of effects. First of all, it does make it hard to discern between different details because everything's the same colour. So if you want to be able to pick out those different details, you need to make them different colours. Also, it makes a mini really hard to read when you're looking at it because you don't have anything to focus on. There's nothing that draws your attention and you just kind of look over a mini just kind of in general rather than actually settling on a particular element. And so by breaking a mini up, painting it different colours, it helps the different details and the different elements to stand out. It makes it also more visually interesting, but also then when you look at it, it makes it easier to read because your eyes can settle on something. And so the way that I went about trying to avoid having it just read head to toe as just one colour and not really look very interesting is I started off with that sort of suit thing that he's wearing underneath. I'm assuming it's not his skin because it's a different colour to his head. But anyway, with that suit thing, I mixed some brown and orange together so that it was going to be a little bit different to the other metallic bronzish colours that I use, but still matched the artwork. And then I used some different metallic paint so that they read differently from each other, and they didn't just kind of all blend into each other. So I used a brass colour, a bronze, and then silver, just to try and break those different little armor pieces up and make them appear as though there are a couple of different metals that have been collected by this guy, because that does seem to be what he is. He's a bit of a collector. So yeah, he's found these different bits of armor from, you know, his travels. He's now wearing them, but because he didn't have them forged, they're going to be different types of metal. And then painted his head a different brown to the suit that he's wearing. I matched that more closely to the artwork, so that's quite a light brown. And then he's wearing that jacketish coat sort of thing that doesn't actually appear in his artwork. And you can see that here that it's not there at all. So this actually really worked to my advantage because it meant that I wasn't restricted in my color choice. I was free to choose what color I wanted to paint that. And so I went with red because I felt that red was a colour that matched the overall theme. It wasn't too, like, outlandish. It wasn't some bright pink or something like that. So red kind of matched the theme. But then it was different enough that it would contrast with all of the browns and the different metallic paints. So that was a good way to bust it up, especially if looking at it from behind, because you've got the backpack, which I painted in a polished leather, so that it's, again, a different brown that reads a bit separately from everything else. And then that red as well. And now I'm going around and putting a wash down on all of the different parts. And these washes actually had a much, much greater impact than what I thought they would. Because before I was putting them down, everything was, you know, to a degree, still looking a bit flat because there weren't enough different colours going on at the moment. But when I put the washes down, first of all, I used some different washes. So I used Agrax Earthshade, so the dark brown on his suit and on his head, but then I used the black, the Null and Oil there on the metallics. And so by having different washes on different parts really helped to separate them more than what I thought it would, because the browny orange suit wasn't super different to the brass and the bronze of some of the armor plates there. But the wash really helped to separate them even further. And the black wash that I put down on the metallics, that's what I always do with metallics for a character like this, because first of all, it helps to bring out all of the detailing, because there is a little bit of detailing in his different armor plates there, but also it helps to knock all of the shine off of the metal. And then when I come back later on, I then use the same metallic that I base coated with, but I just carefully pick out some of the edges, and that helps to bring some of the shine back, so it definitely reads as metal, but it makes it look like worn and tarnished metal plates rather than being brand new, because they're a bit more dulled down. And, you know, him being out on his adventures, they're going to get dirty and grimy, and so they're not going to be all nice and shiny anymore. So that black wash, first of all, helps to separate it even further from that browny orange colour of his suit, but also it helped to create that dulled, worn, tarnished sort of metallic look. And then with his... now again, I don't have this game myself, so I'm sort of inferring from the artwork what these are, but it looks like he's got these kind of almost sort of grenade type things, but not like normal grenade, some sort of magical grenade, I suppose. And that's what he's holding in his hand. And then he's got a couple up on top of his backpack. And then it looks to be some sort of cord tube sort of thing that runs from his backpack through to the armor sort of thing that he's wearing on his left hand, the same one that's holding that grenade type thing. So I picked them out in blue, which, I mean, matches back to the artwork. In the artwork, it's quite a very, very light, almost wispy sort of blue. I didn't go so much with that. I went with a darker blue to make it stand out a little bit more. And then a little bit later, I come back and I start to work in some lighter blues gradually to make it look as though it's glowing. And then I do some OSL as well, just a little bit, because I find OSL a bit tricky on smaller characters because it's hard to get that transition from the highest intensity light to then feather out to just that really, really soft glow at the edge of where the light reaches. So I just do a little bit, but the blue in those vial sort of things, that then becomes another contrasting element. So yeah, that's kind of how I picked out some different spots. So we've got the brownie orange mix for the suit that he's wearing underneath, then 3 different metallics for the armor, just to support the theme of him being a collector, but then also so that all those metal plates don't read as the same color. Then I've got the red of that jacket, cloaky sort of thing that he's wearing, the different brown for the backpack, and then those vials, I picked them out in blue, and so that really helps to differentiate those different elements, helps to reinforce that there's different materials going on here. It's not just head to toe all the same material, and it helps those details to stand out, and it gives you your eyes something to settle on and focus on as you're looking at the mini, rather than kind of looking for something because head to toe he's the same color. So yeah, going into this guy, I wasn't really exactly sure how I was going to tackle it, because the artwork, while like I said earlier on, I do like the artwork, it's not my favorite from the game, but I do like it. The first thing that I noticed was that there were so many similar colors. And again, in 2D artwork, I think that's fine, because you can make those details so crisp and precise. In a mini of this scale, it's hard to have those details standing out so much. And when you're then putting colors that are so similar, so close to each other on such a small scale, they really do just blur together. And so, yeah, going in, I wasn't sure exactly how I was going to go about it. So it was a little bit of a, not so much a make it up as I go along sort of thing, but it really was a responding just to how it was looking. So by painting one part, I could see whether, like, as I was going along and putting down more and more colors, I could see how it was reading. And then I could see, alright, I need to introduce a color here because this is too same. Whereas over here, this is working pretty well, so I don't need to worry about introducing some new color over there. So it really was just a response to how it was looking as I was painting, rather than trying to sort of plan ahead so much, because I didn't know exactly how it was going to be. And as I could see that there were parts that were getting a little too difficult to work out the details, that's where I then made sure I introduced some sort of contrasting color. But then if there was an area that was working fine, I didn't worry about it so much there. So in the end, I was actually pretty happy with how this guy came up. Like I said, I do also have the Scoundrel and the Brute from Stella and Tarrant that I've painted. I do like them quite a bit more, but they are bigger minis with more colours going on and a few more different things happening in their sculpts, and a more sort of probably better poses than that as well, I think. So I like them a lot more than this, but still happy with how this guy came out in the end. So those are the main things that I wanted to talk about for the Tinkerer. The only other thing that I'll sort of talk about a little bit more in detail is just the OSL that I do coming off those different vials. So I might just leave you to just watch along with how I'm painting, and then I'll come back in when I get on to doing that OSL just to talk about what I did there. Alright, so I'm not quite up to doing the OSL yet, but what I'm doing now is just going around and picking out all of the different lights that are coming off the different parts of the Tinkerer. So I'm not focusing yet on like the vials and those sorts of things. So I'm starting off with the same blue that I used for the vials and the other blue parts that I've already painted. And so I'm just starting with, his eyes, the little light on his chest, and there's a couple coming off here where you can see I'm painting at the moment, just those little panels down there. And now I'm moving to a lighter blue. This is just to start to create the glow effect that's actually coming from all of these different parts that are giving off light. And so, yeah, just trying to not cover all of that initial blue that I put down. So I've got a darker line of blue around the edge, and then just concentrating this lighter blue in the middle. And then I come back in a second here with even another lighter blue, and I just keep shrinking and shrinking the amount of area that I'm putting this blue down in, just to try and make the middle of whatever it is that I'm painting, whether it's his eyes or the vials, whatever, making sure they're looking the brightest right in the middle, and that's where the light's coming from. And then so that when I come to do the OSL, it really looks as though those parts are glowing, and that's where the light's coming from. It's being cast onto the surfaces around it. Alright, so here's the final stage of just making these different blue parts look as though they are giving off light. And so it's just a really, really small concentrated bit of white right in the middle of where I've tried to create the glow, just to make it look really, really bright and create a really, really high contrast there, just to really reinforce that that's where the light's coming from. And so now I'm starting the actual OSL process. So I haven't gone back to the initial darker blue that I used to base coat each of these different parts that are giving off light. I've gone to the oceanic blue, which was the second one that I put down just to start to create the glow effect. But what I've done is I've heavily thinned this down. This is really, really thin. Lots and lots of water's been mixed into this. And that's because I want to still have quite a bit of the color, like the base coat color that's underneath, that orangey browny sort of color, or whatever part it is that I'm painting over, still coming through, because the light doesn't completely block it out. It just sort of glows across it, and some of that tone's still going to come through. So by keeping it really, really thin, it allows the different browns or whatever color is underneath to still show through. And also being thin, it gives me a lot of control over how quickly the paint thickens up and the opacity of that blue builds, and it lets me slowly transition it out to that really, really soft glow at the edge of where the light's going to be reaching. And so once I just kind of put a couple of layers down just to build it up a little bit more immediately around where the light's coming from, I then shifted to a lighter blue. This is still thinned down so that I can still feather it out quite easily, and so that it doesn't, again, completely block out the different colors that are coming through from underneath. But this is really just being concentrated right around the immediate edge of where the light was coming from, just to make it look as though the light being cast is more intense immediately around the light source, and that it then feathers out. So as you can see, I didn't spend a lot of time on it. I didn't do too much, because I think it's very, very easy to make it cast too far and to be too bright, and then it just kind of loses the effect a little bit. I just wanted to give just a quick illusion that there were different light sources that were giving off light, and that it was being cast around it. I do find it tricky to do it on a really, really small mini, because you don't have a lot of area to gradually transition it out, but I think the effect is good enough. And now just to finish the Tinkerer off, I've just gone to my stock standard outdoorsy basing approach, which is the exact same steps that I went through for the Scoundrel and the Brute, just to make it look like they're all part of the same environment. So I just laid that earth brown down first, then the Sterling mud just to create a slightly elevated area. Now I'm just smooshing some rocks into that, which I'll paint grey, and then where the earth brown paint is still showing through, that's where I'll put most of the different grass tufts and things like that, just to make it look like he's kind of leaving a grassy sort of area and is about to start maybe trekking through a different sort of environment. But anyway, so with the base, that will finish the Tinkerer off. So thank you very, very much for spending some time checking out another one of my videos. I really do hope you enjoyed it and that you've gotten something out of it that you can use in your own painting, or at the least you simply just enjoyed watching along. So please do give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet to stay up to date with more of these videos as they keep coming out. But this being the last of the 3 minis that Stella and Tarrant from Meeple University sent down to me, I do just want to say another massive thank you to them for sending me them. These have been heaps of fun to paint. You know, something different with each of them. The Brute was really cool to do the fur cloak with, do some cool wet blending there to give that wolf pelt kind of look. The Scoundrel, I just really enjoyed picking out all of those little details towards the end just to really finish her off and do that cool sort of glow on her little sword. And with the Tinkerer here, just playing with some different browns and then finding different parts to pick out just to break up some of those details and make it a bit easier to read, especially on such a small mini. Yeah, each of them has had something different about them that I've really enjoyed, and I hope you've enjoyed watching along as well. And please stop by the Facebook, Twitter and Instagram accounts for this channel, especially Instagram and Twitter. That's where I'm my most active, so you'll see what I'm working at the moment and what's going to be coming up in the near future. But with all that being said, this is Matt from the Plastic Canvas signing out. Happy painting, everyone. Cheers.